thank you for joining us. Welcome to the fourth panel of 30 Days, 30 Ways UK. This week, we're talking all about preparedness checks. A bit of recap on the campaign. So 30 Days, 30 Ways UK is a preparedness campaign. Obviously, was September's Preparedness Month, but we've moved due to out of respect of the death of our Queen. So it's transposing dates to October now. So it's trying to get people a little bit better prepared by having a simple task each day. And what we've done is we've also introduced themes each week. So we've had the other panels are on our YouTube account, so you can go back and watch them. We had the introduction, we had understanding risk. We then talked about making a plan last week, and this week's all about preparedness checks that you can do. These panels have been put together because we are aware that not everybody's going to play every day, and we are looking at doing a weekly theme that people can then catch up at the weekend in their own time. So introduce the panelists. So I've got a lovely bunch of panelists today with me. I've got Dave Harford he's a traffic officer from National Highways. You've also been an AA patrolman, I shouldn't say patrolman, patrol officer, sorry, for a number of years. But you're not only an expert for road safety, but you also have knowledge on water safety. So from your perspective, you've got a foot in both camps, what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, Dave. Thank you for attending. We've also got Dawn Harding, who is Dawn Whitaker, the Chief Fire Officer from East Sussex Fire and Rescue Service. And you're passionate for your work around drowning prevention, and you're also the National Chief Fire Council lead for this, and you support a number of charities. So welcome, Dawn. Thank you very much for joining us. We've also got Darren Carson. You're a prevention team leader for Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service. Your specific interests in water rescue and training, but not only training for firefighters, but also for flood wardens around water, about how to be safe. So thank you for joining us, Darren, as well.
Yeah, morning, everyone.
Just to quickly round up about what we've discussed this week already. So we've discussed medicines when that day was called Drug Bust, trying to get people to check their first aid kits, because a lot of items go out of date, medicines go out of date, and how to dispose of these out of date medication properly. We then yesterday talked about household preparedness and looked at grab bags, and we'll talk a bit about that later on. But are people, can you stay at home for 3 days in your home? And today is all about cook-off, about how can you cook if you had no electricity or gas. So we'll also talk about that a bit at the end as well. So talking about with the experts that we've got on today's panel, I want to come first to talk about sort of drive prepared and checks that you can do while driving. I'm going to pass over to Dave in a minute, but Dave, if you can talk to us a bit about, firstly, what checks can you do to your car before setting off on the road to be safe? And then also, what happens if you do break down on the motorway? What do you need to do, and what would you have to do? I'll pass over to you. Thanks, Dave.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Vehicle checks obviously are quite daunting for a few people, but actually in realistic terms, they're very easy to do. They're a preventative measure, and long term, if you do them well and do them correct and do them regularly, then they're going to prevent you breaking down in a dangerous situation, which could in turn stress you out, could cause a risk for other drivers. So before any journey, or any long journey especially, it's always good to do basic vehicle checks. And the industry of mechanics and everything like that sometimes use the flour acronym, or powder. Personally, I use flour, which stands for fuel, lights, oil, water, electric, and most of all, rubber. Now, rubber doesn't just count your tires, rubber counts your wiper blades as well, because without your wiper blades during storms, during rain, during snow, you're going to be unsure of where you're going or anything like that. Vehicle checks don't take long. You pull a dipstick out, and in most modern cars, you can get it to do it on the dashboard now, even before you leave. If there is any doubt with your vehicle checks, it's always best to get it to a garage. Don't start your journey off before going, if you know you've got a known fault. If your lights aren't working to the rear, if your headlights are only one headlight bulb's working. Washer bottles are quite a common problem where they don't get topped up during times of cold weather like winter, when the salt and the gritters have been out, the windscreen wipers dry up and you can't put any water on because you've not got any, and then you've got smearing effect, which pretty much renders you unable to see anything. We've had quite a few people in this job and on an AA job where they pulled over into the hard shoulder to pour water on their windscreen just because their washer bottles have run out, which obviously presents its own risks. Obviously, if you do break down, it's not foolproof. Doesn't matter which car you have, how old it is, how young it is. Breakdowns do happen. Flat tires, warning lights can all come on. If you do break down, the advice is to get left, keep left. If you do break down, try and get to the hard shoulder, off at the next exit to a service area or to emergency area and use the emergency telephone. Never stay in your vehicle if you can help it. If you get left, exit via the left-hand door, get behind the barrier up a verge to the rear of the vehicle. Never ever stand in front of your vehicle. If in the scenario that your vehicle was hit from behind, that vehicle and the vehicle that it did hit it is only going to go forward and cause you more harm and more damage. I mean, it's just all about being sensible, really, and plan ahead. Obviously, we're coming into winter months, so the regular vehicle checks need doing more regularly. And it's always good to, once you've checked the vehicle, to make sure your vehicle is prepared inside. So have you got warm clothes? Have you got medication? Have you got food and drink? Have you got suitable footwear if you get stranded in snow and ice? Have you got a fully charged mobile? If not, have you got a phone charger? Do you have de-icer? Do you have a skyscraper? It's amazing how many people, when I was on the AA, don't have any of those items in middle of December and January. And most of these problems that you used to get on breakdowns, and most of the problems when you used to go to home starts, were people didn't have the right equipment or failed to do the vehicle checks. So the best thing to do is, I know we're talking about preparedness. It really is that simple to be prepared, which then stops any eventualities when you are going on your journey.
Thanks, Dave. And we're seeing more and more, you know, queues on traffic on the main roads, on the M1. You know, that you on a daily basis. You know, I hear from national highways that, you know, the M1's closed, or you know, fully closed, or one lane. But all those people that, even if they're sort of commuting to work, that might take them 20 minutes, that they nip onto the M1, find themselves stopped. It's so important that they have all those, you know, water in their cars and a warm blanket.
And another thing is, it's not just for the drivers and passengers, it's the children as well. The amount of times I've been to incidents and in traffic where children and families have been going away, and unfortunately they've got caught in quite a long tailback or something like that, and they've got nothing for their children. So they've got the adult drinks and they've got the adult food, but they've got nothing for their children. And another one is particularly important, is medication. Are you diabetic? Yes. Have you planned for that? You know, if you do get stuck, have you planned for that? And the answer is quite often no. And that's quite a big thing, because then you get a call to the police, you get a call to ambulance, or you get a call to us saying, we need some assistance because this. And that ties up resources trying to get to the incident and also dealing with the one that's already caused the problems.
Yeah, and of course, if you are in a you know, a tailback and you can't get any assistance to you, you're stuck in that traffic.
Yes.
Until you can sort of get turned around or carry on. So
yeah, unfortunately,
yeah. So stranded motorists is a big thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Cool, thanks, Dave. I know hopefully everybody on this panel has stuff in their cars. I know I have. I've always got my grab bag wherever I go. Thank you for that. Now we have got participants, so if anybody wants to ask any questions, you can, and I'll be monitoring the questions and try and answer them, or I will ask the panelists for any questions. So if anybody wants to ask any questions, please do so, and I will ask. Now I'm going to come on to Dawn first to talk about drowning prevention. Now you're an advocate for this, and this is why we've invited you to attend today. Can you give a little bit of background about all the charities that you support and drowning prevention, please? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. So yeah, Joe's right. Apart from my day job, which is in the Fire and Rescue Service, I do one or two other things with water safety. So firstly, the professional body called the National Fire Chiefs Council, which is effectively, you know, our professional body in the UK. I've been the lead for water safety and drowning prevention since 2013, and that led me to do lots of work with other agencies. I've been a long-time member since the 90s of the Royal Life Saving Society, and have done various courses, particularly useful for small children, you know, Save a Baby's Life and all the other programs that they run. I also then went on to, freely through my experiences in fire and rescue service, to support an organisation called Families Against Drowning in the UK, which is sort of largely Facebook based, but is about people who've lost loved ones who are advocates for water safety in the UK. And we've done work supporting families through that organisation. I've been a member of the National Water Safety Forum as a coordinating group because of my NFCC role since 2014, I think, and was part of a group that wrote the UK's National Water Safety Strategy, which was launched in 2015, up for refresh soon. And also I took on the chair of that group. I was elected to do that well, I'm into my second year now, so I've been doing that for a little while as well. All of those things really give me a great platform to be able to talk about water safety, to work with other agencies and make sure some of the key preparedness messages come across, because, you know, drowning is a really significant issue in the world. You know, over 250,000 people in the world drown every year. If you hone in to the UK, that figure's around 640 for all different reasons. And as we see bouts of hot weather or indeed, you know, flooding, we see those numbers increase as well. And just to sort of explain my motivation even further, if we just look at this last sort of period, last summer, where we had a real hot spell, didn't we? In those hot weeks of July and August, we saw over 44 fatalities in water in the UK alone. So really significant. In the UK, more people die in water than they do on cycles or indeed in fire. So that's why I'm focused in on it, and being prepared is a really key part of that. So like Dave, you know, with his key messaging about being prepared, there are some very simple messages with water safety. Firstly, stop and think. You know, if you're going near water, even though you don't intend to be in the water, potentially you could slip, you could trip, you could fall, or you could come across somebody else who needs rescue. So knowing what to do in that situation is really important. Also, particularly, and forgive me if I aim this comment at a particular age group, if you've got loved ones in your family, students going away to strange places, you know, now in different towns or cities around the country or indeed the world, they'll be enjoying themselves, getting into student life, but it's really important they stay with their mates and they don't get left alone, particularly if they're walking home late at night after a celebration. It's also important to know who to call. I'm sure Darren's going to cover this in a bit more detail, so I won't steal his thunder. But one of the key messages we've been pushing through the UK's campaign, which is called Respect the Water, is about knowing what to do when you accidentally end up in the water. And if you haven't seen the RNLI's video for Float Like a Starfish, I'd recommend it. Talk to your kids about it, talk to the people that you love about it, because water is a risk. It's also a great way of enjoying, you know, a fantastic amenity. I'm an open water swimmer. I love going in the water. I've also got a boat, so I know how to enjoy the water safely, and that's what keeps me safe.
Thanks, Dawn. Any questions for Dawn? If you could just put them in the chat, and then I'll ask. Thank you for that. So if I want to come over to Darren now. So what happens if you do either find somebody who is in the water, or you find yourself in the water. So start with the one, if you sort of walking along and you find somebody in the water first, Darren.
Yeah, morning everyone. So first thing I would advise is especially if you're inland, it's actually fire and rescue have the responsibility for water rescue inland. So it would be 999 through to fire and rescue. Somebody is in the water. What we're trying to do is just teach a 3-word acronym called talk, reach, throw. So the first thing we'd want you to do is actually talk to the person in the water and try and get their attention. What we don't want is somebody else going in after them, because we find a high proportion of the time the person that goes in to rescue the person that will get into trouble as well. So there was another recent campaign called Make the Right Call. So if you do a bit of Googling around that, you'll see what to do when somebody goes in the water, and we'd rather that you rang emergency services. So we tell people is to talk is the first thing, and linked to that is a technique that Dawn touched on called float to live. So what we want people to do if they find themselves in the water, is rather than trying to scrabble to the bank straight away or get to safety, is let your body adjust to being in the water. So it's essentially floating like a starfish, like Dawn said. So we want people to float on their back, chest out of the water, head out of the water, and let your body acclimatize to the cold water shock as what it's known. What we find is if people try and get to the side initially and straight away, they're gasping, and the risk is you're taking a lot of water on board. So I would say if you're going to talk to somebody, tell them to float on the back, to float to live, call the emergency services. Linked to that, kind of know where you are as well. We find a lot of incidences around water where might be out in the countryside, things like that. So maybe knowing where you are, having a free mobile app called What 3 Words that will tell you exactly where you are, and as a massive help to the emergency services would help as well. So we've done the talk part, the reach part. You know, can you reach that person? Is there a pole? Is there a stick? Can you use a belt? Is there anything there that you could get out to that person to help them get into the side as well? Again, making sure you don't put yourself at risk, because what we don't want is another casualty. So you're always got to think of your own safety, because if you get into trouble, you can't help the person in the water. And the last thing we say is throw, from talk, reach, and throw. So is there something you can throw to them that help them float? Like football is one of the most obvious things you can think of as well. So we want people, if you do see somebody in distress in the water, it's talk, reach, throw. Don't put yourself at risk, and call 999, ask for fire service.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, that's very interesting, Darren, and could save someone's life. Good. Has anybody got any questions? I don't know whether we haven't had any come through. Yeah.
I think it's important, following on from what Dawn and Darren have said. Obviously, I met Dawn through my previous role as an AA patrol, but also as a swift water rescue technician. And come this time of year, when we did have flash flooding, when we do have periods of rain and all that, the amount of cars that drive into water are huge. And people need to understand that 6 inches of moving water will sweep them off their feet, and 12 inches of moving water will float a family car. Unfortunately, that happens quite a lot during this next 3 months. Significant rainfall can change the dynamic of a stream or a ford or something very quickly. And even on A roads and motorways, if you have a downpour so heavy, it will cause flash flooding. People need to realise that they need to be prepared to change their route, not just plan on what they were going to do because they might know that road. Roads change dynamically with the weather, unfortunately, and water, driving into floodwater in cars is not a good move for anybody, or the emergency services that have to come and get them.
Yeah, no, definitely, and you see that on the news so many times with cars stuck in water. Yeah, no, thanks, Dave, for that.
And I'll add to Dave's point there. We had an instance here in East Sussex last year during heavy rainfall and a flooded area of roads. We've got some areas that flood quite regularly down here. I won't name drop, but we all, if you live in East Sussex, you know where they are. And effectively what had happened was a car had driven into floodwater at a bit of a well-known dip, and it's adjacent to a river which has obviously raised its come and burst its banks. And there was a well-known supermarket delivery truck that was obviously in a hurry to get past this vehicle, and wanted to continue to make his deliveries to his customers, which is fine. But he drove around the side of this car, which was obviously stuck in flooded water because it had got into his engine. And suffice to say, it wasn't long before we had lots of floating bottles of milk and food products. And so, you know, not only did those people not get their home deliveries, but that delivery vehicle was off the road for some considerable amount of time, I suspect. So, you know, you can't beat water. I have to say it's a strong element. And so today's warning is really salient. And of course, the other thing is plan longer to dry. Your journey will take longer in heavy rain, or if there are congestions, or you know, there's flooded roads. So there's no point in seeing red mist and getting all worked up about the fact that you can't get from A to B in the time that you anticipated to. You need to stay calm, because then you don't put yourself in the risk zone, and also just give yourself some more time.
Yeah, very, very well said, Dawn. The other thing with floodwater, of course, I mean, the amount of time I've seen like a village flooded or a town centre flooded, and you see people walking in it, let alone swimming and surfing in it. There's so many hidden dangers below the floodwaters, you know, manhole covers that have come up and all sorts. So, you know, do not go into floodwaters at all, on foot or in car.
Yeah, in fact, actually, it's a well-made point, Jo, because one of the rare deaths that we saw in floodwater was exactly that. And a chap got his foot stuck in a pop culvert, so the lid had actually come off. He was walking and got his foot stuck in it, and unfortunately, he passed away. So yeah, exactly that. You don't know what's underneath the surface.
No. That's yeah. So two checks there with your car and in floodwaters to keep you safe. Now we haven't had these days yet, so they're over the next couple of days. Drive prepared and respect the water. So tune into Twitter to find a lot of UK best practice going on from fire and rescue services and local authorities across the UK, and obviously national highways will be supporting that as well. The other thing, so to end today's panel, I just wanted to ask, with the grab bag, hopefully you've all got grab bags, whether they're in your car or at home, but grab bags we discussed yesterday, they're really important in case you need to leave your home in a hurry, so you can actually have your medicines in there, you know, phone chargers, things that you might need to grab in a hurry. What would you say, and I'm going to come to each one of you, what would you say what couldn't you leave home without to put in your grab bag? And I'll come to Dave first.
Food and snacks and a mobile phone and mobile phone charger.
Yeah.
Because like Darren said, without a mobile phone, you might be in a rural location on an A road, you might be on a motorway such as the M50 that's got poor phone signal, but is very dark down there as well. So for me, it's a mobile phone, food and snacks, and a phone charger, and even sometimes take a nap. Because what 3 words is brilliant, like Darren said, but you can't beat an atlas in the day. And if you need to look for diversions, then you can do it even better on an atlas than what you can on Google Maps. Yeah,
old-fashioned map. That Absolutely. Where have they gone? Oh, I still have one, but yeah, really, really important. If
we rely too much on technology at times, and yes. I think you open an atlas and you can plan your route even before you start a journey. So if you do get a hold of it, you can kind of change where you're going to go. But for me, that's those 4 items.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Dave. Dawn, what would be yours?
So apart from the obvious stuff, and this is probably more to do with the fact that I work in the emergency services, I have always got a foil blanket in the back of my car.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, over the years, I've given them away. I've never actually used it myself, but I've given an awful lot away.
Yeah.
To elderly people when I've turned up and they've been in an RTC and I'm first on scene, or to a kid or somebody else that's been involved in something or is stuck. So yeah, and they're so small.
They are small.
They're really small. So yeah. I always have a full blanket.
That's great. Yeah, cool. Darren, what would yours be?
I think my 2 for me, the first one for me would be a torch. because you don't know if you're out at night. you know, it's a torch. You'd never go wrong for torch. And I think an obvious one as well is money and a cash card. You know, you could be flooded away from home, but not be in the countryside, but you still need to eat. You still need to buy things and things like that. And it happened to me once, but luckily I did have my cash card and a bit of cash for me, or it'd have been a long night sleeping in my car. So yeah, as long as you've got means to sort of get money out and buy things, what have you. And
brilliant, that's great. And for mine, I can't miss myself. I think mine would have to be the food and snacks. I've always got a supply of those in my car. I've also got the full blankets, but I've also got sort of a dog toy, because if you have to evacuate, you're going to take your dogs, so don't forget to put stuff in for your dogs as well. Well, thanks for that. So I want to try and I want to remind people that we have got a preparedness survey that's been running since 2015, and we at 30 Days 30 Ways UK, we've been doing that every year. To follow us on Twitter and to find the survey link, but we want to try and get as many people across the UK to fill that survey in, so we know a bit about you know, how prepared are you. And we can gauge that every year to see if this campaign's working. So don't forget to do the survey. We will be doing the last panel next week. So next week's all about prepared communities. And one of my favourite days is the movie night. So we talk about disaster movies and how that compares to sort of real life. So that's quite interesting. But thank you very much for being on the panel, Dawn, Darren and Dave. Thank you very much for your expert advice, and I will close it there, and for everybody else, we'll see you back next week for next week's panel. Thank you very much, and bye.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Bye, thank you.
Wasn't missed on me, Dawn, Daryl and Dave.
Yes,
Cheerio.
the great three. Thank you.